Okay, we'll make this official welcome. We're back to school for second semester. Just when all the university kids are getting ready to start their jobs, we're starting a semester. So welcome. I'm going to say welcome back because almost every single one of you, I think every single one of you were here with me for the first semester, and we have a couple people who have joined in for this time. So I was just asking all of you, did you have a chance to do all of your cutting and your quilting? And it's okay if you didn't get a chance. And just a second here, I'm going to spotlight myself. It might make it easier to focus when you can see the person better who's talking. So it's okay if you didn't get all your homework done. And here's part of the reason why. Now that we're in the second session, you're going to find there's probably about almost the first half of class today. It's going to be me more demonstrating it because they're all things we've done before. Alrighty. So that means I'm not going to give you as much time to sew it and wait before I move to the next step because it's steps we've already done in both of the previous bags we made. Okay. So teacher has got fingers crossed and counting that you did reasonably well with that and you'll be okay to do it on your own after class before the next session. So I may not sew on every single zipper to every pocket. I may do one and say you're on your own for the rest, okay? Because I want to focus on what's new to this session. And that's where I want us to be able to go through. And I will give you time to for those who are ready to try sewing it so that if you have a question right away, you can ask it because you took the time to, you made time because you wanted to be here live. I shouldn't say take the time. You made the time because you really wanted to be here live. Okay. So that's how our format's going to go today. Did anybody have a show and tell from last semester that they didn't get a chance to share with us yet and they have it nearby and you'd like to show it? If so, just unmute.
Okay. I do, and I apologize for missing the last class, but I have to say the Zoom classes are fabulous to go back to.
Excellent. Thank you.
Uh, so this is the Pocket Packer.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I have a different binding on it, and I bought the kit, and I certainly had enough to put the orange on it, and I have no idea yet why I didn't, but that's it'll come to me one day.
It's
And
pretty
this
though with the soft, gentle binding. It's just a different look.
Well, yeah, and as I say, it worked out. That one worked out well. This one was the clutch.
Yes. Oh, cute.
Yeah. So also, I don't know what I was thinking of, but my binding on the side is different.
Does not matter. Wait till you see what I'm doing today with my bag I'm
Okay.
making with all of you.
Well, that'll be great. And I do want to remake the strap because I don't think my cutting was quite as accurate as it could be. So I'll get back to doing that again. But anyway, I was able to finish both of those doing the Zoom class. So I was really thrilled with that. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Alrighty. Anyone else who'd like to share? Just give a wave or unmute.
I'm going to say, Michelle, I had trouble with the cosmetic clutch.
Okay.
I was breaking needles like crazy, and it's still sitting there. The binding's not on the bag. But I haven't given up. I just haven't gone back to it.
Okay. Was there a particular part of the bag that would make the needle break?
Well, I think the leather, I guess,
Like,
just
was it when you were trying to put on the side gussets where you had that extra
yeah,
thickness?
yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um, yeah, it was the side for sure. Well, it was this bottom. It just kept breaking.
so, and I experienced that making my ByAnnie side hustle bag that I mentioned a few weeks ago that I broke 5 needles.
Yeah, I broke three. And the Microtex, the 90
Yep.
40s or 14s,
I
whatever.
used, I started with Microtex that I always do, and that broke twice. So then I said, let's try a jeans needle. I went to that, it
Oh,
broke. Then I think I had no more of either of those kinds. I think I put a universal and tried it next.
okay.
And so I decided, you know what? There's just something about this combination of the layers and that vinyl that's not working
Yeah.
for me. But yet, when I used a different vinyl from the same company, I had no problems on the cosmetic clutch, so the one we put in our kit was a smooth green one. I had no problem sewing that. Then I went to use the one that had a different texture in it, but from the same company, and I was breaking the needles. I think it was slightly thicker than what I'd used the first time. Anyways, long story short, this
Yeah.
this the way I got through it, Deb, I
Yeah.
hand wheeled stitches, even though it was tedious.
You did what?
I
Hand stitch?
moved my machine by the hand wheel.
Oh, hand wheel. Oh, I read that somewhere and I thought I was going to try that. I have no problem going slow if it'll work. This was the faux leather that I got from your store.
Okay,
That's what
that
I
was the one I
used.
used, that green one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not, it's not like I gave up. I just didn't get, it
So
wasn't calling my name.
try the hand wheel, and the reason the hand wheel helps is when it starts, like when you're turning that wheel towards you on your sewing machine and the needle starts to enter the fabric,
Yeah.
you have the advantage of your hand, you will feel the resistance because you're the one physically moving it. When you're
Right.
doing the foot pedal, you're engaging a motor to do it, okay?
Right. Yeah,
But
that makes,
you have control when you're going that slow. And what I did was when I started to feel that spot where, oh, you can just tell it's like I'm hitting concrete, I just back up slightly. And
okay.
sometimes I could shift the bag, just nudge, try again. It's like, oh, it'll go through that spot. So I agree, not fun. It's frustrating, but it can accomplish the task for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Give it a try.
I
Okay.
promise I'll do it. I just, yeah. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Great.
All right, I'm
Great.
going to spotlight. So Karen has something to say, I think, or show.
Yes. Hi.
Okay, here we go, Karen.
Oh, whoa.
Here you
Okay,
go.
here are my projects. That's way too close. There we go.
Oh, I love the Allison glass fabrics. They look pretty.
Oh, it's so pretty. They're just too pretty to use. Well, this one is too pretty to use because if I put something in, then you can't see the fabric.
Put small rulers in it.
Good idea.
You'll still see the fabric through the rulers a bit.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that too. And as to binding, has always been a pain in the patoot. Binding, always. But keep doing it. So there must
Yep.
be something to it. It'll come easier someday, maybe, or
It
not.
eventually get better. And you know what? Some people just may always have that relationship with binding.
Exactly. So I'm still here, still doing it. So
Yep. That's what
it's fun.
counts. Way
I
to
enjoy
go.
it. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I just see the message here. Lynn. Okay. Thank you, Lynn. Um, gee, I guess it's still back ordered on the pattern too. I can say measurements as we go along too, Lynn, and show you ours in case you want to see it. Power outage in Toronto from Wendy. No juice. Oh, I was worried about that too. We had a lot of crazy rain and stuff last night. I'm like, please do
Actually,
not let me have it.
I'm on temporarily, but we'd come to my daughter's in Uxbridge last night, and the power went off before the hockey game at yeah, 5 o'clock, and it still hasn't come back on yet. All
For
over
you.
Toronto. So not sewing, not no juice left for the internet, for
Yeah.
laptops to watch the class. So I'll
No,
have to.
that's okay. You can catch up. I went to bed when it got to overtime for two. When they said 2-2 was going to overtime, I said,
Yeah,
I can't take another game like this. That was last
very
week.
stressful.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I am too tired out to watch another overtime period. And I went to bed and looked this morning when I got up. And I was like,
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I'm really glad I didn't stay up. Okay.
Well, yeah, it was actually quick, but anyway, yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's jump on in then. I'm going to spotlight me and then I'm going to switch my camera in a moment, but I'm going to show you our bag we're making. So this is the large size, and I said we were doing the large size in the kit. A couple of people reached out and said, do I have to make the large size? That's huge. No, of course not. You don't have to. I picked the large size because sometimes a bigger piece is easier to conquer in the sense that you have more space for the sewing, more room to play with adjoining binding tails and so on. So that's why I chose the large size, and because it is actually useful, because unless you're, a size 12, 13, 14 feet, most people can put a pair of shoes in here, whether it be man's dress shoes or bulky running shoes. Or if you're like me, when I tested it, I could put like 3 or 4 pairs of sandals in summertime in here, like skinnier shoes. So it'd be great if you're going on a vacation to keep the rest of the other things in your suitcase clean. You can load it up with some shoes. Okay. So what we're going to work on today is we're working on the components. Next month's class will be assembling it all. So your great big piece of outer binding, your great big main body piece that you quilted, we won't even use it today. But you've got it done if you got it done, so awesome. But we won't use it. And that's the piece that makes the bottom and these sides. That's your main body. Okay, it'll get split up into 3 sections just by sewing a line. Don't worry about that right now, but that's your great big quilted piece. What we're going to create today is we are going to create this mesh pocket, okay? And a little different because we're putting 2 kinds of binding on our mesh today. We're going to learn to sew a fabric onto our mesh. Fabric doesn't like to stretch, but mesh likes to stretch. So that's a level up skill we're working on in this section. And then we're also going to learn how to work again with, we're going to put fold over elastic on mesh. And they both like to stretch there. So that's a different kind of experience. Okay, so we're going to learn these 2 things. They are basically techniques that you'll get better the more you work with it, because you'll get the feel of how to work with all these things that want to stretch on you. But the nice thing is it's also forgiving. So we're going to be making our pockets. We have 1, 2, 3 mesh pockets. We have a fabric pocket. We're going to be doing that. And we're going to make this flap. Okay, so we're going to make all those components today, and some of it will be for homework. All righty. So here we go. I'm going to flip, and we're going to start at the first page of our pattern, and I'll flip to my other camera. Anytime you have a question, please just unmute and ask. That is the best way. If it's not urgent and you want to type it in the chat, of course, by all means, go ahead. Or if it's just a comment for another time to consider, go ahead and do that. But don't be shy to unmute yourself. Okay, so we've got our pattern here for our double zip gear bag 2.0. And part of your homework, I said, was please go through and read all your pattern from start to finish. And I actually did that for my last pattern. I'm not always, what's the word? I don't always practice what I preach, I think is the expression. But on my side hustle bag that I made recently, I did read it all because I wanted to modify a bit. Well, you can't modify something if you don't understand what it's supposed to be first. So you always should just read through your pattern. Okay, so everybody, before you make your bag, you have to do the cut and quilt section. And so some of you haven't done yet, that's okay. And as usual, Annie gave you a guide to how to best cut out your pieces and your quilted pieces. Now, I'm going to show you what I have done for this bag. So I don't know if my husband is still downstairs, but this one's going to be a Christmas present. Okay, so I'm getting a jump. And so I'm doing it to kind of use up some things and suit the recipient. So I decided that I want to use this fabric that I used for my sashiko my Japanese inspired Kantomoto fabric. Then I'm also thinking if I want to borrow the bag, I'll be coordinated next time I go. Connie's smiling. I had this fabric left over and lots of it. So here's what I did. This is my outside of all my pieces. But then when I went into my stash yesterday to say what's going on the inside, I didn't have enough of anything to do the whole bag. So some have this backing, some have that backing, and my end pieces have that lining. Okay? How did I do that? Well, now that you're in the second session, I hope you'll get confidence because of reading Annie's patterns. I hope you'll get confidence to see that you have choices. You can take the one piece of fabric as Annie suggests, follow her cutting chart and do it her way. You can quilt the one big piece as she suggests, follow and cut it. Or you can do what I do when I want to use up scraps. Here's the key part. I go up to this section, which tells you after you've quilted your fabric, please cut these sizes of pieces. What I do is I take a backwards approach and I go up here. I'm going to lower this a bit more. There we go. Especially if you don't have your, sorry to Lynn who doesn't have her pattern. Okay. There we go. So my body, that was easy. My main body, I just made that one piece. I know I needed that. So these are after I've quilted sizes, and we know that when we quilt something, it can shrink up a bit. So basically what I do is I add 1 inch to everything. So when I knew that I wanted to do, I got, these are my end A and end B pieces. Okay. So again, I had all kinds of fabric for the outside, but not enough for lining. So basically, I looked at my end A and B pieces and I said, okay, my pattern says I'm going to be cutting them at 7 inches by 9.5. So I cut fabric and soft and stable at 8 inches by 10.5. And I quilted that piece by itself, and then I trimmed it down to the size that it said to cut. So you can now use that you've got some more understanding of how Annie's patterns work. I lost my label for these ones. It will appear somewhere. So now that you have that understanding a bit of how to read a ByAnnie pattern, that's how you can, like in my case, make do, because I didn't have enough of any one type. So I'm like, let's just have fun with it. Or if you accidentally fudge something and cut something wrong, but you've got extras of one of the other fabrics, here's ways you can fix your problems. Okay? So those of you who haven't quilted yours yet, you might luck out because maybe this inspired you to think of you want to do something different now. Alrighty, so we're going to go to preparing our zippers. So even if you don't have your pattern there, if you have your zipper, Lynn, or anyone else in that situation, you can go ahead and prepare them with us and still do this part. Okay, so if you got the kit, you had two 30-inch zippers with a double slide in your kit, or if you bought them individually. Some of you chose to use zippers by the yard, in which case you're going to take a little different approach to yours. Okay. But I'm going to show first if you have the 30-inch double slide zippers. I'm just going to, just a second here. Bear with me because I need to get these lined up. Okay, so here's what I need you to do. Put your 30-inch double slide zipper in front of you. right sides up, but this what's you're going to look different about yours. So try not to, your teeth go like this, okay? You've got them. Will it sit there and cooperate for me? Okay, you should have like a pointy nose to pointy nose, okay? That's how yours would be. Because mine is zippers by the yard and I didn't think to put one on going in that direction, I don't have it to show you. So mine are like nose to behind, okay? Nose to bum. You want nose to nose is what yours will look like if you have that 30-inch zipper. If you're using zippers by the yard, like I'm doing today, then you need to load on 3 zipper pulls onto yours. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3 zipper pulls there that I put on, okay? So regardless of which way you're doing, we can all prepare this. And I'm gonna give you time to do this if you are ready for sewing with us today. You're gonna have to do this part so that you can make your pockets. If you're not ready to sew with us today, your choice if you want to still do this part now. Okay. So if you have the 30-inch zipper, it's really easy. We're trying to make pieces that are 11-inch, 12-inch, or sorry, 14.5-inch, 15.5-inch, and 15-inch. So essentially you accomplish that by folding your 30-inch zipper exactly in half. Okay, so if this is my 30-inch zipper, I can move it so it looks more realistic. Okay, now, okay, this is my 30-inch zipper. You can fold it in half and get your zippers aligned. So let's say that's my halfway mark. I would just take my friction pen and on the side of the fabric tape, each side, I did a line. It's easier now. I can do the other one looking at it flat in front of me. Okay, I've got one marked so I can kind of eyeball over. Okay, so essentially I'm marking halfway point of my 30-inch zipper. If you're using zippers by the yard, like I'm going to do, then just go the amount it says on your sheet, a 14.5-inch, a 15.5, and so on. And I'll show that one in a moment too. Okay, so now that you know where the middle section is, you're going to be pulling your zipper pulls away a bit. And you're going to go to your sewing machine and you're going to just stitch a line, maybe like generous 1/8 all the way across. So you're just going to stitch, stitch, stitch a 1/8 from that middle. And then on the other side, stitch, stitch, stitch a 1/8 from that middle line. Why are we doing that? We're creating a stopper end to help us not pull our zipper pull off the tape. If we do, we can still put it back on. We might not be happy while we're doing it, but we can put it back on. So let's try to avoid it coming off. So go here and stitch. You're going to do it for both for your zippers. And then once you've stitched there, now you can cut down that center line. Before you cut, please make sure you have a zipper pull on both sides of that line. Okay? If by accident you didn't, it would be really easy to just untear those little stitches you did and start over. But once you've cut it, it's cut. And then it becomes more difficult. Okay. So is everyone okay with that for the people who have the 30-inch zippers? Yeah? Okay, so you can go ahead and do yours. For the people like me who are using the zippers by the yard, I'm just going to erase my red lines there. I don't have an iron turned on, so I'll use my eraser. Okay, so for us, you can see how I put painter's tape on the end I've already cut. Little trick Kathy at work suggested me to start doing so I don't accidentally cut off the other good end where it's easy to put your pulls on, because I've done that. So that was a great tip from Kathy. So I'm just going to take it off for now. So basically what I need to do is I need to measure from this end and go through my sheet and create all these zipper lengths. I need a 14.5 inch, a 15.5 inch, and a 15 inch. If you say, oh my gosh, I have to like carefully measure 3 different ones, the really easy way out, if you don't care about wasting a tiny bit of zipper tape, is you could just cut them all to 15.5. But I'm not going to be that lazy this time. This time, I'm going to measure them properly. Okay, and you can do the same. Sorry, I just need to grab my ruler. Thought I had it with me. Sometimes the tape measure is easier. Okay. All righty. So the first one I'm going to do is 14.5, and I'm gonna go, so that's 12. I gotta eyeball this, 12, and that'd be 14, 14.5. I go a little bit extra, like 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, because again, I've still got to sew some ends. So for my 14.5 inch one, I'm doing 15 inches. Okay, so I'm bumping it up by 1/2 inch. So I get to there, that's my 14.5 inch one that I just did here. So that one's good. Now I'm going to do the second one. And if you want to make sure you know which zipper is which, just put a number. I'm just going to call that one number 1 with my Frixion, okay? I'm going to put a little line under it, remind me. That's my number 1. Then my second zipper, it says to do it 15.5 inches. So I'm going to go from that center. I'm going to go 15.5 inches. And then again, I'm just going to add a little extra. There's 12.5. And Michelle, you should have grabbed a longer ruler. 12.5. And 3. Okay, so I went another 1/2 inch there. So that's my second one. And I'm going to write a number 2. This will come off. I can just iron it off later if it doesn't get hidden in my seam. So that's my second zipper. And my third zipper is 15 inches from there. And then again, I'll add a little 1/2 inch extra for sewing my ends with my pull. 12.5. 15.5 is right about there. So it's reason you don't have to have perfection on your measurement is they have to be longer anyways. Don't make them shorter. That would be a problem. But making them a bit longer is a not bad idea at all. So then what I have to do is I have to make sure I have a zipper pull again within each space. So this is where I'm going to be sewing. So my zipper pull is to the left of it. So then just like the other crew had to do, you're going to go and on this one, your last one, you can stitch right on that line because that's your last zipper we made. That's my number 3. Okay, that's my number 3. And then I'm going to go over to my number 2 and I'm like, uh-oh, Michelle, you don't have a zipper pull in there. That's because they're both at the other end. So pull one back here. Get it so that it's in my number 2. So you're going to see, yes, your zipper is going to be open because that's all you can do when you've already put pulls on it. So when you go to your machine, just hold it closed with a finger, okay, away from your needle and just stitch over that, right? So I have one in here. I actually have too many. No big deal. Pull you off. There we go. Okay. And now I will go to my sewing machine and I will stitch these so you can see that. You want to watch. Okay. Oh, and we figured out that it was better, I think, if I turned off my lights. That's not too bad. We might be okay today. Okay, so there's that middle where my red line is here. And I'm going to stitch a little bit to the left and to the right. I'm not even worrying about the color of my thread or anything like that. This will end up being cut off and thrown away eventually because this is just the extra. Go slowly over teeth, even though they're nylon. You can break a needle if you hit it the right way and you're going fast. Okay, then I just cut my thread, not worrying about back stitching and all that. In fact, you don't even really need to cut your thread. I could have just pivoted to the other side. And then I'm going to go about a 1/8 from the other side as well. Okay, so there's one zipper done. And then this is where I would cut it. So if you use the 30-inch double slide, now you'd cut this one and you would have 2 pieces of zipper. Because I'm doing zippers by the yard, I'm going to continue on now and slide over to my next spot where I have to sew. This time I am going to be smarter and not cut my thread. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot there. Just come across. Pivot again. And we go. Perfect. Okay, so for the zippers by the yard people, this is our second zipper. I'll cut you. Open. There we go. There's my second zipper. And now I'm doing zipper number 3. And so this time it's okay if I just want to stitch right on the line I drew because this is my last piece of zipper. Okay. Oh, just going to let Mavis in. There we go. Okay. And then seeing this was my last one, I'll just cut on the right side of my end. And now all my zippers have a zipper end. Okay, so you have, everybody will have 3 zippers. Oh, this one I need to go back and stitch an end on it because this is where I started with my zipper by the yard. So I'm glad I caught that. I'm just going to go and stitch that down. Okay. So now those points are ready. So, oh, sorry, I needed 2. 2 of the last one. My mistake. That makes sense why I thought there's something not right because you had the other half of the zipper. Okay. So
Hey, Michelle,
yes.
my second zipper is not arriving until tomorrow.
Okay.
So I will therefore have 2 available today.
That'll be fine.
Which would be the best to put them on? The first step?
Well, for you it won't matter because you're breaking yours up equally in half on the 30-inch zippers.
Right.
So it won't matter which pockets they go on.
Okay.
And 2 will all you will need today.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's a chance again to show people how to put their pulls on. So you always take that end with fabric. Fabric has to enter the zipper before teeth. It's like main course before dessert. Okay. It's because it's a lot easier to do if you have some fabric to hold on to. And you have to give them a tug. And if you find it doesn't want to tug, it doesn't want to go on well, often what you have to do is you have to go and just release like a tooth. Just slightly separate it. Sometimes it just needs that little bit to help it get going. Even after you've put on many, like I put on this tape already, all those other ones. See, now it goes on easily. Okay. Sorry, I'll just do another 15-inch. That would be number 3. There we go.
I decided to do a medium-sized bag, but now I'm kind of regretting it because when you look at all the instructions, it'd be easy if you're doing the small bag because the instructions are on the left. If you're doing the large bag, the instructions are on the right. Yep. Yeah. Note to self, Karen, next time, go big.
Nope, good point, Karen. So now you've learned something about the ByAnnie patterns, right? Whoops.
Exactly. Yep.
Wrong side, and then I started to cut on the wrong side of the zipper,
Yep.
but that'll be okay. All right, so we've got our 4 zippers. That's my extra tape. Okay, so I'm going to sit those aside for the moment. And now we've got that part done for prepare our zippers. Okay. So that took me down to where we're going to prepare our fabric pulls. So I'm just going to talk you through this step. We're not going to sew these now. I feel quite confident that you are all able to do this on your own. So I'm just going to basically talk you through the instructions here and show you with the fabric. So the zipper pulls are so that we can do this, and I didn't do this part yet because quite frankly, I just forgot. I got to the end, I'm like, oh, I skipped making my zipper pulls. I got to go back and make them. So the reason you actually want zipper pulls are just the little bits of fabric that you put through the pull hole. Okay. And they come on in every ByAnnie pattern. She says to make little zipper pulls, little piece of fabric to go through there. It just gives it something extra for your fingers to hold on to. And it's another fun opportunity to embellish your bag. I usually buy fun bag charms for that I clip on. Okay. So I never make them. But on this one, and I think that's why I wasn't thinking and skipped it. On this one, we need to make them because the easiest way to open this bag is if we have a zipper pull, or in this case, it's almost like it's creating a little handle, is we want a piece of fabric joining each of the zipper pulls. So then you can pull the fabric like a handle and both zippers open together at the same time. Okay. If you don't do that like me, not a big deal. You got to open one and then you got to open the other. No big deal. Okay. And then, if you want some for on your pocket zippers, you'll have enough fabric left to put them on your pocket zippers too. Okay. So essentially to make this, it's really quite simple. You're taking a strip of fabric 1 inch wide. They ask you to do it by 42 inches, and that'll give you enough to make all the little zipper pulls you want. And so essentially, when you do this, you need to fold your fabric like into quarters, and you want to have your raw edges closed. So the easiest way to do that is get an iron, but I'm going to finger press it, and you find your center, okay? And then you just fold them inward and you press again. Now, you may have something called bias tape or twill tape in your tickle trunk, I like to call it. I don't shop much at the place I called the F store. Teasingly, Fabricland. I do get a lot of things that sometimes at a small shops just can't carry everything. But so I have a supply from Fabricland where I'd find them on sale on the clearance table and I would buy them. So you might already have that kind of bias tape that's wrapped around something and you could use that. But alternatively, this is also a fun way to use up pretty ribbons that you have. You could just use a ribbon and cut the length you need to go between. So if you wanted to use your pretty tulip pink ribbons, that could be a way to use them. Otherwise, you just follow the instructions, you double it all up then so that your raw edges are tucked inside, and you go to your sewing machine and you just sew down that open edge. It's as simple as that. That's what she talks about making a zipper pull. Okay. So that'll be a piece, you can wait till the bag is done if you want to do that part. That's decorative. Alrighty. Okay. Then we're going to do a review of making bias binding. And so this is where again I was like, oh, I need something that will match my main fabric that's a 14-inch square. What can I find in my stash? And I found this plain blue solid. So this was great. I actually got to use that up. I had like not a whole fat quarter. It worked out brilliantly. So we did this before and last session. So you would start with a 14-inch square, okay, that you've cut. You're going to cut it corner to corner. It does not matter which two corners you use. It'll accomplish the same thing. But remember that you have this thing called, most rulers have a 45-degree line on them, okay? That's to help you align your raw edges. So when you want to use that, we can like trust our eyeballs to go corner to corner. But if you want to really make sure you're going to be accurate, also take the time to line up your 45-degree line with the one edge of your fabric. And then you know for sure you're going corner to corner. Okay. All right. So we do that. We cut it. We now have two triangles. And then we want to do what I always think of as like the nautical flag look. And we're going to turn it, whoops, around to make this shape. Okay. We're going to make it that shape. Now, if you're wondering which side is which, because I have a solid, it's right sides together, okay? Right sides together. Very important. I just realized a solid wasn't a great choice to demo that for you. Sorry about that. Right sides together. And if you ever go to make the bias binding and then you this way and you're like, oh, I just don't remember. You're trying to create a parallelogram. So you can just lay them down to make that parallelogram because this is the shape we're trying to sew. And then we're going to take our ruler and we're going to cut our strips and then we're going to sew all those end to end again. So we did learn that in the first session. This will give us the stretchy bias, which we need for going around curved pieces. So if you can't remember, put it the way it's supposed to look after it's sewn and then flip one over. Now you know you've got right sides together, and then you'll take that to your machine and sew your 1/4 inch seam allowance, press it. I just press it to one side. You can use your seam align glue, get a nice crisp seam, and then you'll cut them. Again, cut 2.5 inches. I can't remember what Annie said in this pattern. I'm a fan of 2.5 inch. Especially like on these bags, on our project bag that laid flat. If you're confident with binding and your seam allowance is good, 2.25 sufficient. On these, I always go to 2.5. Okay. Alrighty. So now we're going to go back and we're going to look at preparing a grab tab. Again, I'm just going to demonstrate it for you because what I really want, the most important part of what we're going to do today is making the flap. And I would like us to have an hour for that. Okay. Alrighty. So our grab tabs, those of us making the size large, you are using a 3-inch by 9.5-inch piece. So Karen, you're a 3x8. Okay. Alrighty. So I've got my grab tab here. Okay. And here's what we're going to do. So we're going to start by, so we want to find the centers. And when you're not sure which way they want you to fold it, this is what I like is that she gives you the finished measurement. So that's a huge help. If you're like me and you sometimes just don't follow the written instructions well, she's saying with right side out, fold the grab tab in half and she actually tells you what size it should be after you fold it. So you can do a little math to know, is she talking about the short end or the long end? And she's talking about the long end because the 3-inch side stays the same size. We're starting with a 3 by 9.5, and we're folding it to turn it into a 3 by 4 3/4. That tells me I'm folding my long edge. Okay. And same with the right side out. So here we go. And we need to mark that center. All right. And I'm just going to mark it by finger pressing right now. Okay. And then I'm going to open that up. Okay. She says to press it. I just finger marked it there. In fact, I might just put a, is there gremlins in my room? Like, where am I sitting? There it is. I'm just going to eyeball, put a little bit of red there so I can tell for sure. Okay. And then in step 2, it now says fold in half on the center fold and press it to make a 2 3/8. Okay, hold on. So we've done this concept before. We're folding into that middle, okay, to where my center is. And then I would press that, all right? I'm folding this one in to the center. Press. Okay. Now when I fold that over, remember you'd be doing this all nicely with your iron. Now when I measure it, I will have a piece that is 3 inches by 2 3/8. Let's test this. Okay, I already know this one's 3 because we haven't done anything to it. That one's 3 from when I cut it still. And then this one is, whoops, I want that side of the ruler. 2. I'm slightly shorter than 2 3/8, but if I'd actually done that properly with my iron, I feel like I'd be pretty good. Now, if you're a little bit smaller than 2 3/8, we don't care. Use it because this is what's happening to it. It's getting sewn inside your bag. So it's decorative. Okay. I can't even put my finger in there. That wouldn't help me to open my bag. It's just something that, hold on, it's decorative mostly. Okay. So don't fret. Don't make it again if you're a little bit short. And that's basically all you need to do for folding. And then you'll see in the diagram here is that you're going to start and you're going to go all around 1, 2, 3. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, and close up the open side. We should look like that. 1, 2, 3 sides to sew. So that'll be sealed up. Okay. And I'll be sending out a list, but you're going to make this for ready for homework. Okay. So I'm going to put you back together there. Alrighty. Then the next part is prepare the handle, which we also don't need today. And you've made handles before, so we're just going to do a little review. So again, when you're making a handle, double check you have the correct piece. This piece I need today is 2 3/4 by 9.5 inches long. Okay, so I'm going to be folding this in half. I would just finger press this to hold it together, make it lay flat better. You're going to go to your sewing machine. I've got it right sides together, folded hot dog style, as I was reminded of that expression last couple days. Long side of the bun is open, okay? And you're going to 1/4 inch seam, stitch that all the way down. Then you'll go over to your iron and you'll do that little thing where you kind of lay it flat and you will press that seam open. I think you can get the idea. Okay, you'll have it pressed open like that. Center it. I should have said I backstitch at each end of this because when you're turning things inside out, you really need a backstitch. We'd backstitch at each end of it. You'll turn it inside out and then it'll all be made and you will slide your handle into it and then you'll end up with a handle where there's a bit longer on each end And just like we did before, you'll just follow the instructions to stitch around it. And that's on page 4. Okay, so that's a review. Remember, you can always go back to the video from our very first class, our first session when we made our peacemaker, whatever, bags. And you can see how that's done there too. All righty. Okay, we are ready to talk about pockets. I'm going to take like a 2-minute break to have a drink. If anyone needs to quickly run to the bathroom or something. And then we're going to start working on our pockets. So we'll take like a couple of minute break. But if you have a question about what we've done so far, don't be shy to ask.
Michelle, when you're back from your drink, let me know.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So it's Donna. It's the first time that I'm using the zippers by the yard.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you covered this when we first started about whether the zippers had to be nose to nose.
Yes, they don't have to be because you're creating single slide zippers.
Okay, perfect.
Right? Which means one pull. So the easiest way is put them all nose first.
Thank you.
Yeah. They're harder to get on the other way. I know. Me and my analogies, but I guess I'm a little weird, but these things I don't understand.
No, wouldn't say weird at all. You're an excellent teacher.
Oh, thank you. Or maybe you're just weird too, Donna.
I can live with that. Totally okay with that.
So you want your pocket A quilted piece, which is the 6-inch by 14-inch piece if you're doing the large bag. And then you'll need your pocket A binding, which is 2 by 14-inch. And you'll need your first zipper you made, which is the 14.5-inch one. Yeah. My number 1 zipper. Number 1 zipper. Pocket A and pocket A binding. All righty.
Michelle,
Yes.
I'm just going back to the handle. Do we sew that with a 1/4 inch
Yes.
seam? Yeah.
Yes, you
okay.
do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I'm also squeezing in a little snack. If you have your ByAnnie basting tape, you might want to use it now. I'm going to grab mine. Okay. Alrighty. So the part we're going to do next again, it's a review because we've done these types of things in our project bag. So we're going to start by, we're going to have our pocket A. So I'm just going to remove that. And I've got my pocket A binding here. I can just set that aside for a moment. Okay. So I am sitting my pocket this way on my table, long side facing me. Alrighty, and I am currently looking at page 4. And we are going to grab our zipper that is 14.5 inches long that we made. Or if you have you use the 30-inch zipper, you're just taking one piece of zipper. Yours are all the same size. Okay. Now you're going to want to have your zipper pull nose facing to the left. Okay, we're driving towards the left so that you know that. All right. And I find it always helps to just lay the zipper again on top of it the way I'm going to be wanting it to look when it's all finished. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over. So we now have right side of the zipper to the right side of the fabric. Alrighty. And this is not new to us. We have to place the zipper so that we are going about a 1/8 inch past the fabric, and I can still see my zipper tape. Alrighty. I'm going to just do this to help make that stand out better in color. I think that helps you see it a bit better. So my zipper tape fabric is going a 1/8 past the edge of my quilted piece. So this is where I'm going to use.
I'm sorry, Michelle, can you do that again? My brain just
Of course.
gave up.
Okay. So I'm making sure my zipper pull is facing to the left. Okay. I know this way I want it to be when it's done. So now I turn it over so there's right sides to right sides. I'm going to put my ByAnnie tape down here. But when I sit that zipper up there, I'm not going edge to edge. We're not acting like quilters right now. Okay? I actually want my zipper tape to go further past the edge of my quilted piece because when I fold it back, that's going to act like a binding to enclose that raw bit. Does that help? You can
Yes.
watch me do it now, okay? I'll do it for real. Put that. My basting tape. If you don't have basting tape, you'll use your Wonder Clips to hold it all in place. Make sure you keep the tape close to the edge. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance and the tape is 1/8 inch wide. So in theory, if I place my tape correctly and I sew a 1/4 inch seam accurately, there's no way my needle should be going through that sticky tape. You might also win the lottery too if you buy a ticket. Do you love? We have a hobby where there's lots of variables. Okay. And then I extend it past. And honestly, when I do this part, I center it so that I have a bit extending past both. I kind of just lay it here to slightly audition it. I find it easier to flip it over then so I can see to make sure that I really am extending or hold it up in front of you, whatever works. And then I go along and pinch it in place to catch my tape to hold it there. I can kind of go that. Okay. If you were using Wonder Clips, you'd be just going along and clipping, put the flat side against the lining. Okay. Because then when we turn it over, we're going to sew from the front. So now that I have that on there, I'm going to take this to my machine and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, a generous 1/4 inch seam allowance from the edge of the fabric tape. Okay. Now I like using my zipper foot for this. So I'm switching on my Bernina to my number 4. So quickly change that foot. Having trouble seeing around my camera. There we go. Okay. Tell my machine. 4D. Put my two. Okay, so now I'm ready. When you use your zipper foot, you have to put your needle to the left. And for me on my Bernina, I'm going all the way to the left because I want a generous 1/4 inch. So here I go. I'm going to start in the zipper, not in the quilted area. So I'm starting a little bit ahead there just to get her going. And remember, if at any time you find something doesn't want to crawl over the thickness, then you just need what they call like a little puddle jumper, so to speak. And sorry, I'm just turning my lights off. They're too bright. That's better for you guys. You can just put a little height compensation tool behind if you find it's too uneven. Okay, so here we go. When I get close to that zipper pull, it needs to go out of the way. So I lift my presser foot, push it past it, and this is why we sewed the other end, so that it doesn't get pulled off there. Okay, and I find it helps to guide it a bit with my stiletto. Okay, so that's sewn. All righty. And I will give you time, a few minutes to work on this. It is review, but we've only done it a couple times before, so we need some more practice. Okay. So now I'm going to do what's called finger press the zipper to the back. Okay. So this is essentially, it almost is easier if you look at it from the back. This is the way it feels naturally that the zipper wants to go. Okay. It wants to naturally do this. We're going to force it to do that. I have to say, this was one of the hardest things about any ByAnnie bags. It took me forever to just grasp what she was saying. So essentially, lay your zipper down like that. I'm looking at my lining. Pull the other end of the zipper flat, and then pull the closest zipper side close to me, so that now all I'm seeing is the wrong side of my zipper and the wrong side of my pocket piece. And then I'm going to stitch this down at my machine. I'm going to stitch all that down, and that's going to seal in that part of the pocket. Anybody like me to walk through that part again? Don't be shy. Okay, so now I'll take it back over to my machine. I find what helps is if you have some really long clips, I find it helps to just clip it in a couple of spots, like 3 spots is usually good. And then you're going to use your stiletto or your awl to guide yourself along when you're sewing it. Okay. And what you have to remember is your bobbin thread is now going to show up on the outside. Okay, in case you're concerned about matching, take time to change that out. All right, and there we go, back to our machine. And I could switch over right now to my 1/4 inch foot. I'm not going to bother. I don't want to do that at the moment. I'm just going to quickly use this one, and I can use the guide. I have a little line on my zipper foot that tells me, there we go. I'm going to have my needle lined up with my 1/8 seam allowance, and I'm good to go. Okay. Okay. And if you start to feel, I started to feel a little resistance. My feed dogs didn't want to push it along there. Then that's where I should have just started sewing into a piece of fabric first. It just didn't, it was like that analogy I've used before when your tires are spinning on ice. You need to get a little bit of sand under one of them to help you gain the traction to get the momentum going. And I'm making sure my fabric of my quilted piece is staying in place there. And because when we're sewing, we want to actually be kind of looking ahead, that's why I'm using my stiletto to hold down, because I'm sewing by keeping my eyes on my stiletto, and I'm like moving towards my stiletto. That's just one of my little tricks to help me stay nice and accurate. Good top stitching makes a huge difference when you look at details. Like if I'm buying a bag in a store or clothing, I found I've become more conscious of looking at those details and seeing how they're doing them, partly because I know it's difficult. And so I kind of want to see like the quality of who's making my bag. So that's what it looks like on the back side. And that's what it looks like on the front. So it made a nice little enclosed edge for my zipper. Okay. Don't worry that my zipper is open here. Okay, don't worry about that. It's all going to get closed and open again. It's all going to be just right. Okay. So now that we've done this part, what we have to do next is we're actually going to put binding on this side of the zipper. And we did that before already in our first class. Okay. And so I'm going to take my piece of binding, and I'm going to give you some time to do this. Okay. I'm going to take my piece of pocket binding A. I have it, I just finger pressed it in half. And the nice little trick to make this easier to do when you're binding a zipper is I'm actually going to go right now and do a basting stitch and baste my binding closed, because fabric on the zipper tape is a little bit slippy. And I'm trying to keep this raw edge lined up with something slippy and small, and I have teeth in the way. So I'm just going to quickly give this a little baste. Okay, I'm still just using my zipper foot, to be honest. I'm just keeping life simple here right now. But I'm going to lengthen my stitch to like 3.5. And I'm just going to stay within a 1/8 seam allowance, which I already had my needle set up for. So. Okay. Alrighty. So now that I have, that makes it a lot easier to have this staying closed for me, because now I'm not as nervous. I'll go with my Wonder Clips here. I'm just going to put it in place a couple of spots to get me started, because honestly, it's just easier to go slowly, use my stiletto and kind of feed it along as I'm sewing this on. And we'll bind up that zipper edge. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to easily start sewing right here because of that pull. So I'm going to take that out of the way. Or if you wanted to, you could sew from the other end, but it doesn't matter because at one point you're going to have to open the zipper somewhere. Okay. You can put on your 1/4 inch seam foot, or I'm just going to stick to my zipper foot because I know it likes the way it crawls on my zipper teeth. And I'm just going to line it to do a 1/4 inch seam. There we go. Okay, and put my stitch. I'm doing my stitch length of 2.5, my standard stitch length. Okay. I'm not bothering to backstitch or anything, but what's really important is, do you see how my zipper is floating out from my binding? This is where using an awl really helps. I tried gluing it and using the basting tape before, and I just found there's a couple times, I don't know if I didn't do a good job in placing my tape, but I found there was times that I ended up sewing through it and I didn't like that. So instead I just go really slowly and hold it in place. And that's why stitching it down on the 2 raw edges helps you, because then you're not worrying about trying to hold 3 layers in place, or 3 things that can move. You only have 2 things that can move now. Okay. Okay. And so then I will do just like on binding a quilt, except I'm going from the front here, but I will finger press that. Oh, should be using the end of my stiletto. That's what it's for, and it's easier. Does a better job. Okay. And then I'm going to turn it to the back side of my zipper. And
Oh my God, already.
if you want this one to look really, really nice, take your time and clip it in place. You should have enough folded edge here that when you roll it properly, it should be just coming to cover that stitched line of when you sewed it on the front. That's how you know this, that you could do a woohoo, I'm perfect today. Okay. And we're going to close it all up and stitch it down. So I'm going to give everyone some time to work on that pocket who are ready to make it now. And a tip, start by the middle. And you're going to stitch from this side. Well, that's open for debate, actually. Hold on here. Ideally, you're going to stitch in the ditch from the front. Yeah, we're going to stitch in the ditch from the front. So really take time to make sure that that is tucked around all the way. And that's why I actually do a lot of clips on this one. Because we are going to stitch right in that seam line. And that's going to hold down and catch the back. Right? I found that I did have a couple spots. Every time I do this, I don't think I've ever done it yet where I didn't miss catching a couple spots on the back. But again, the way to make sure that's going to happen is making sure you're covering your stitching line, because then you know you're on the other side of the seam. But if you don't succeed in catching all of them, the easiest way is just go tack it down with a couple of hand stitches. So I'm going to give everybody, how many people are actually sewing with us? If you can raise your hand or unmute, then I'll know how fast to go or not. Sherilyn's sewing with us. Karen is. Mavis, Deb. Okay, so we have a few. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Max. Okay. And then this pocket is, once you've stitched that down, this pocket is ready to go. And we just set it aside, and then our next will be our mesh pockets. Okay. So when I go to sew this, I'm going to change to my stitch in the ditch foot. On my machine, that's number 10 foot on a Bernina. You might have a 10D for dual feed, or a 10C, which is the 9mm wide machine, but no dual feed. Most people will probably have a 10D if you have a dual feed machine. And so I think we've talked about this before, but when you're using a stitch in the ditch foot, the advantage of that is that you have like a guide here in the middle of it. You can move your needle if you need to, but the way it's meant to work is if you keep your needle in center position, your guide's in center position. Basically, first the guide is driving on the road and the needle's following it right in its footstep. So in theory, our needle is stitching right in that ditch. Okay. So important to get it lined up correctly. A little bit over. Whoa, oh, oh. So this stuff here on my zipper tape, this fraying, my machine started trying to suck it in. I heard a little crunching sound, so I stopped. So I'm going to share with you how I'm going to stop that from happening the second time.
Woohoo, I'm done. I got it.
Woohoo! Fancy pants. Here's the teacher not even done. What I'm going to do right now is, remember how I know I'm eventually going to cut this extra bit off? I'm actually going to put a piece of fabric underneath that so that I'm going to sew through all this piece of fabric. This leader piece is going to cover the feed dog so that it can't suck up that fraying stuff. This is a little idea I had came up with recently that ended up working really well for me when I was having this problem. And I kept trying sewing into the leader first, but then it would do it again when it'd get there. And I'm like, hey, think outside the box. What can we do here? And this trick worked. And then I'll move that out of the way. Okay. And I did not catch this part, but I know why, because I had already been able to see that my seam allowance was too wide. So now I will tell you right now, I didn't notice I'd move my needle. So I have a top stitch on here, but I don't actually mind that. It's intentional looking. So like, unless you tell your friends that it's a mistake, they don't know. Alrighty, so I will stitch that down before next class. I don't need to have that completed today. So I'm just going to leave that. Okay. And we are not cutting away the extra zipper tape. I'm just cutting away my fabric I used to help me solve my problem there. Get it out of the way.
Oh, did I miss it? Did you trim that?
No, I didn't. Thanks for reminding me, Mavis. I was just looking, I'm like, the minute you said it, I was looking at my paper. Saw that. Now you got to trim it. Because everybody's sewing might be a little different, so you need to now go and check your measurements. So for the large one, this should be 6¼ inches tall, And you're trimming away from the bottom, obviously, because we don't want to cut off our zipper. So I'm just going to measure here, see if I need to trim. What did it say? 6 1/4. I'm a whole quarter. I'm almost 3/8 extra.
Holy jeez.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm going to take this over to my big cutting table with my big ruler, and I'm going to line my ruler on the
A
bottom
half,
again.
I'm a half inch too big, so
Maybe she did on purpose though, because then you don't end up too small, right? Okay, so then you're going to trim it, and then you can set that piece aside. Thanks, Mavis. We would have all wondered why it was too big when we went to put it on the bag next month. And then you're going to stitch that side closed again with your 1/8 basting stitch, like we always do, to go around all the edges of the quilted part so that it won't be busting open when we're assembling our bag. Okay, so I trimmed it, and then I'll go and stitch this down again with my 1/8 seam allowance. Okay, now I can set this one aside. Then we'll be getting out our mesh pocket B and our pocket B bindings. And give about 1 more minute. If you're not done that pocket, that's okay. You can finish it before the next session next month.
Hit it the wrong friggin' length.
You know, in all of I'm on a Facebook ByAnnie thing, and there's all the talk about using polyester thread rather than cotton on bags holding it together.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? I don't really love sewing with polyester thread except for on a long arm.
I pretty much always use my Orifil cotton.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I cannot imagine that not holding up if all your seams are secure.
Yeah, so I made my place for everything bag using cotton thread, Orifil cotton. And Mavis, you were with me on that Hawaiian cruise. I brought that bag with me on it. I had it stuffed with at least 10 pounds worth of stuff that I would bring to class every day. Walk through airports with it, hanging on my shoulder with all that stuff, like 10 pounds of stuff in it. My bag looks like the day I made it. I think this is just my opinion. It's not based on any like fact that I can say, but I think some people use poor quality thread, period. And if you had a poor quality cotton, I could see perhaps that could be problem down the road. You know, if you're buying it at the dollar store, it might not hold up. But no, I use my Orifil cotton. No problems. Alrighty, let's carry on. Okay. So what we're going to be doing with pockets B is we're going to be making a mesh zippered pocket. So that is going to be this one from the outside. Okay. So when we talk about modifying things, if for some reason you didn't care to have that zippered outside pocket, you don't have to make one really. You can just have a bag with no pocket. Or if you didn't want it in mesh, there's nothing stopping you from making two pocket A's like we just did and having that sturdier enclosed pocket on the other side. Okay, so again, you're getting more experienced with your bags, and Annie encourages you to substitute what works for you. Let's say you're giving this to somebody who goes swimming and they've got, swim goggles. They've got their swimsuit with them. Maybe you could take OD coat, vinyl coating. I believe we still have some in the store. Or you could take the iron-on vinyl that we have, and you could put vinyl on this fabric before you start sewing it into your bag. After you quilt it. You don't want to quilt through the vinyl, or now you just put holes in your vinyl. And now it's not waterproof anymore. Okay. But you could quilt this, then iron on the vinyl. And then if you wanted to, instead of a mesh pocket, you could use ByAnnie vinyl for this. And now they've got a spot perhaps to put their wet goggles in when they come out. And then if you wanted to do the same on all the lining, You could completely, again, cover this with iron-on vinyl before you start assembling it or adding pockets to it. You'd put the iron-on vinyl then, and the wet swimsuit can go in there. Okay, so there's a lot of room for creativity with these and to make it what suits your purpose. But making it the way she does the first time, it really builds your understanding of how you can modify things. Okay, so we've got our pocket B mesh. I've got it long side facing me. And then you have 3 strips of pocket B binding. And again, Michelle is going so scrappy. I basically looked for a piece of blue that would match that I could get 3 strips out of. And so we're going navy for this one. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how this all turns out. So what will make this job easier is if you take a moment now to do what we did before. You can finger press wrong sides together, okay? So wrong sides together, finger press it. You don't need to go to your iron unless you really want to, if you like that nice crispness. And I highly recommend you go and do that basting stitch. Go to like 3.0, even 3.5, and close your 3 raw edges so that you've got a 1-inch wide binding stitched and closed. Everyone okay with that? We did before? Okay. So let's all take a moment to do that for our 3 pieces. It'll just make doing all the rest of the pocket faster and easier when we get to those steps. And I can just chain piece and I don't need to cut my thread in between. Oops, meant to lengthen my stitch. There we go. And do this at a 1/8 seam allowance or close to it. I accidentally went too far.
Okay, was that wrong sides together?
Yes, because we're making binding. So I know it's hard to tell with my solid fabric. It would be wrong sides together. And you're only doing like a top stitch kind, like a 1/8 in from the raw edge. I just accidentally got daydreaming and did a whole 1/4 inch. There we go. We'll fix that. Followed the wrong part of my foot. There we go. Yeah, it helps to, you can either pin it all or just kind of keep taking a little peek at the fabric underneath to make sure you're still lined up. This is a good trick to use too. Like if you're binding something that's kind of difficult to do and you're worried about things moving and shifting, you can use this trick anytime to sew your binding closed at the raw edges with a 1/8 seam allowance. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. So as long as you have one piece of binding ready, that's all you need for the moment. So I'm going to take my binding and this is the edge I just stitched close is furthest away from me. I'm going to call that's still my raw edge, okay? This is still my folded edge. So I've got my raw edge there. It's easier to sew with mesh if the mesh is on top of the fabric so that your feed dog is feeding your cotton fabric, not the nylon mesh, which wants to stretch and is also full of holes. Okay. That's like the equivalent of sprinkling cheese kind of on, sprinkling salt on your thing. It's really easy to just get in everywhere. This will just get eaten up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line up raw edge to raw edge, simple as that. And I'm going to put in some clips. Okay. If for some reason your mesh is longer than your binding, no big deal. This is going to get trimmed back anyways a bit. Okay. And I'm going to take that to my sewing machine and I'm going to stitch it on and then I'm going to fold it over the front and I'm going to stitch it down again. So you can watch me do that.
1/4 inch.
1/4 inch seam.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And again, I like to start going into a leader piece. Just this is kind of fabric that it's unusual and it's easy to get sucked in. There we go. That was nice and smooth. You don't need to backstitch. And you may notice that your mesh is multiplying as you're sewing. It is going to stretch slightly as you're sewing. So I'm already seeing a little bit, my mesh is like rising up because now I've got it stretched. I've got more in there than I started with. No big deal. Just keep removing your clips. Don't pull on it, but just make sure it's laying flat. So again, you can probably see here, I can slide that stiletto right in there, right? It's raised up because it's stretching slightly, but all I'm going to do is help it stay flat. I'm not pulling or anything. I'm pushing it down against my fabric.
Oh, that's what I like that look.
And because of that, I got to my end and yeah, I have about a 1/4 inch extra mesh extending past my binding. That's completely normal when you're sewing with this. Okay. And then I'll cut the thread. So then I like to really use my clips on this to do my best work possible because it likes to move. So now I don't iron it because of the fact that the nylon wants to mesh. But essentially, we're looking at it this way. If you were doing quilting, I'm pressing to the dark side. Okay. I'll turn it back and you'll see that. So I'm just going to the front. I'm going to press that seam away from me, my navy fabric. Then I'm going to flip it over. And so now, see, there's my seam with my mesh. And now I'm going to very carefully fold it towards me and clip. So when I'm folding it towards me, the nice thing is you're going to see how I have lots of binding. It's going past where I sewed, and that's going to be great because that means if I go to the other side and stitch in the ditch, look at this is fun part with the mesh. I can tell if I'm going to be able to sew through it because I can see it. This time it'll all get sewn down. Okay, and so just clip those all in place. I put a clip every couple of inches because this stuff likes to travel around. And so the reason we're using fabric to bind this, it says, if you read Annie's pattern, she says you basically always have the choice of binding your mesh with fabric or fold over elastic. Fabric is a better choice for this situation because we're going to sew a zipper onto this binding. And it's a lot easier to sew a zipper onto fabric than it is to sew it onto elastic. In case you wonder why we're doing this, this is extra work. When we get to the next one and we use the fold over elastic, it'll be really clear to you how it's a lot extra work doing it this way, but it's beneficial when we're putting in a zipper. Okay,
Michelle, oh,
go ahead.
sorry. May I ask you just to flip that over for a second? I just want to see, is it that it's matching up on? No, okay, so you do have just a little bit on the other side.
I have a little bit showing through.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I personally want that to make sure I've got it all. Someone else might fiddle with that. If we were being judged, in a quilt show, it should be an equal amount on each side. But I ain't going in a quilt show. So again, this is where you could put on your stitch in your ditch. And I said the nice part is I can see, actually, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it from the back. I'm going to sew it from the back. So I should have put my clips the other way.
Why are you going to sew it from the back?
Because then I can totally make sure that I can see I'm catching it because I have the luxury of using see-through mesh. I can see if the fabric is under there, so I'm catching it. Does that make sense or no? It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me turn it over. If I do it from this side, which is my nice folded edge, there's not a lot for it to hang on to in my mesh. So if my folded edge is going past the back side of my backing and I stitch right close to that folded edge, all I'm stitching through is that mesh full of holes. So it's probably not going to stay sewed down. So if I do it from the back, I'm essentially compensating for what I could call my inaccuracies. This way I can see if there is binding fabric underneath my top layer. So I know I'm sewing only through binding fabric. And like I want to go through two layers of it, right? The front side and the back side. I don't want to go just through the front through one side and mesh. It's not strong enough. I don't know if I made that sound like any sense at all or not.
It does.
Hopefully when I start sewing here, it'll be more obvious. I forgot to put in my leader. I got away with it. I was lucky. And feel it starting to grab a tiny bit. So I've got my needle aligned so that I'm going like as close as I can to that folded edge, but my eye can see that I'm still got binding underneath extending past. So this is good. It means I'm catching everything. You're not liking it. That was my fault for not paying attention to put in. If this happens, there's a fix around. See, I just went in there with my Stato and released the thread. It was just kind of like my needle was bogged down in it. I'm just still gonna go back and put a piece of fabric under there and I should be fine. Once it gets. Oh, for pity's sake, come on, you. This one mean mesh. Don't do like I did. Remember to put a leader piece first. I'm just gonna, there's no point in being stubborn. Take it off, Michelle. See how it started to eat my mesh? What's important right now is I have to make sure I still have the right amount of inches. And I can tell by grabbing another binding piece. Yeah, I ate up about almost a 1/4 inch, but I think I'll be okay. All right. So this time I'm going to make sure I start with a leader piece so that my feed dog gets its teeth in there good into that fabric to help it get rolling. There we go. God, I hope this is not normal for me. I don't know what I did. There we go. Sometimes putting your stiletto on the fabric in behind your presser foot, that's what I was doing. Sometimes putting your stiletto at the back of your presser foot and just help gently pulling it along when you're stuck, and that helps. It's like being stuck in snow. There we go. Now I'm smooth sailing.
What did I do to the pieces? Okay.
Okay, so now when I take it back, here's the fun part, really. You can choose which side your sewing looks the nicest on, and that'll be the front. Because remember, we're gonna go now, and this is the binding we just put on. We're gonna attach a zipper to it. Okay. So that's my nicer. So that's my better side, because if I do it the other way, I'm seeing binding through it, right? I had a little bit of overhang, so that's going to be the inside of my pocket. Nobody will be able to see that at all. Alrighty. Okay. So now I need my second zipper that we prepared. I wrote it as zipper number 2 on mine. It is a 15.5-inch zipper. Okay. And you're going to love this step because it is super nice and easy. All we are going to do is I have my pocket piece right side up. I have my zipper right side up. And I'm just going to put my binding on top of that zipper and I'm going to sew it onto the zipper. How fun and easy and nice is that? And again, I can use my tape if I wish to. Okay. But be accurate with that tape, because you don't want to sew through it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my tape out here. I'm going to go right close to that edge, as close as I can get. Again, because my needle's not going to be in that area. Okay. Excellent. Whoops. My needle, my fabric pucker. There we go. Okay. So now I have that down. When I go to place my binding on the zipper, I basically want it lined up with the width of my binding. That's as far it goes. And so let's check how wide that is. It's approximately a 1/4 inch. And my seam allowance is approximately a 1/4 inch when I stitch. So they all line up nicely. If you're not sure, just cheat and do it from the back and lay it down, or, flip back and forth and peek. But you don't want to go past that. So I'm going to pull my tape off. Paper.
Michelle, the audio is so distorted on my end. I'm going to pop out of this and pop back in. Okay.
All right. Yep. I'll let you back. Thanks for the heads up. Okay. So I'm going to carefully line this up. Whoops. Sticking to my fingers. Oh, didn't go quite far enough. You got to get that first piece going, and once you get it one section just right, then you're usually smooth sailing after that. That's good. See how that's good? I've covered the whole piece of binding. And on the front, my mesh is still free. I don't want the zipper tape under the mesh. I only want it under the binding. Okay. Alrighty. And then I'm going to take that to my sewing machine and I'm going to stitch that down. I'm just double checking. A 1/8 stitch. So you're going to sew it on using a 1/8 stitch allowance from the folded edge of the binding, okay? So I'll show you. So when you go over to your machine, that's a 1/8 inch from this side here. That's your folded edge, okay? So let me get my
Michelle, may I ask you to flip it over just one more time to see the other
Mhm.
side for a sec?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so when I take that to machine, currently looks like this. That's the orientation of my zipper pull. And I'm going to align my presser foot with this folded edge. And I'm going to stitch 1/8. And if I'm doing that accurately, I shouldn't come anywhere near that sticky tape on the other side. Okay, so let's all do that. I'm putting on my zipper foot because I love it. I find it feeds better for me, so I'm just going to switch. But Annie uses her 1/4 inch foot and her Bernina, and she loves how that works. Oops. And again, you may find it's good to start with leader piece, but make it thick because you've got a height there. So in that case, what I do is sometimes I just roll over to have a few layers of fabric to do that first stitch through. And then I'm feeding at a similar height to similar height. So that helps everything work better. Alrighty, line up that line right there. So if any of you are using for Bernina foot, I've got my needle position at -3 to the left, and I'm doing that folded line lined up with that inner groove on my foot. And that's how I'm doing my 1/8 seam allowance. And then once I get a little ways, I'll move my zipper pull to the other end.
Oh. Mm.
So once you put the zipper on, you're going to find if your mesh didn't already start curling, it definitely will when you add on this extra step. I don't know why, but it always does. Okay. And then I know I'm racing a little bit here, but I want us to try as close to an hour as possible for our flaps. Okay. So now what you have to do is if you look at page 5, here, I'll put this here for you. Okay. So we have done this step. We have put on our zipper. Okay. So we're going to do exactly what we did on the previous pocket. Even though it was mesh, we're doing the exact same thing. We're going to put binding on the outside of the zipper. Okay. We're going to put binding on that outside of the zipper. And then we're going to use that measurement in step 4 where it says trim height of pocket to 1/4 inch if you're doing a small one, 4 3/4, Karen, if you're doing the medium one. Those of us doing the large, we're trimming it to 6 inches tall. Alrighty. But first we have to put on that extra piece of binding just like we did before. So I'm going to go ahead and do that part. And you work at your pace. Okay. So I'm going to take, again, we've already got our pieces that we had ready. So that makes it nice and quick now. And I am going to attach it to, what did we do before? We did it to the front. Yeah. I'm going to attach it to the front. So I'm going to put my raw edges aligned. And I'm going to just sew it on with 1/4 inch. It's just like sewing 2 pieces of fabric together for a quilt block. I'm keeping my zipper put on for this again because I like it. I like how it works for me. Pull out of the way. Here's my stiletto. Okay. But I'm going to take time to make sure I've got myself. Yeah, that's my 1/4 inch. Okay, and again, put something to sew through back there so it doesn't eat everything on you. Okay, and I'm just carefully going wrong and keeping raw edge of my zipper tape aligned with raw edge of my binding, and I'm sewing a 1/4 inch seam. Moving my zipper pull out of the way for a carry on. And then I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. And I'm going to clip it. Whoops. Sorry, I unplugged my camera accidentally. Well, it's the first time I did it today. I'm getting better. There we go. Okay. And I'm just going to do like I did before and finger press it. And we're going to sew it down on the back. And then when you're done that part, that's when we're going to trim it up to 6 inches tall if you're making the large bag. And I can see that I was a little too generous with my seam allowance. And when I pull that around right now, see, if this stitching line you're seeing right here, that's my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Except I can tell by looking where I started out, I was too generous. And so when I fold this over naturally without forcing it, I'm just barely getting to that seam line. So if I try to stitch in the ditch from the front, I am not going to catch it. It won't happen. So I have two choices. I could unpick it and do it again, or because my husband won't care, I'm going to sew from the back this time. And my bobbin thread will show on the front, but it's going to land on this navy thread and they're matching, so it's not going to be that noticeable. That's going to be my MacGyver trick to fix that problem. There's always another way to do it. It depends on how perfect you want it to be. When we were on our stitching cruise in Japan, the Japanese have this thing they call wabi sabi, and it's like finding beauty in the imperfect. And so that was our joke every time we made a mistake. We're like, oh, it's not a mistake, it's wabi sabi. This is gorgeous. Okay. Now, I'm going to see how this goes. Like, so here's the reason why you don't normally want to do this, guys. Because my zipper teeth are going to be feeding against the base, and it doesn't like that. So, again, I'm doing this as a workaround because I just want to get this done. You guys are on here with me. But that's not ideal, and I'm hoping that by starting it in the fabric, I'm going to be okay. It'll get feeding. So ideally, I should have just, taken it apart and re-sewed it, but I'm confident I can make this work. Well, I'm losing my confidence. Gonna try covering the zipper teeth there. See if that helps. No. No. Okay. So I'm going to have to pick this apart. And we will not do that today. But here's what I would like you to do. And I'm going to ask you to finish it after class if you haven't had time to do it now because I really want us to have a 5-minute break and then go to our flat piece. And I still want to show you, we still got to do our other pocket. So here's your steps, and I'll make sure it's all written down in the instructions Maureen sends out to you. You will turn, sorry? Nope. Someone said something, sorry. So you're going to turn it, clip it over, and do like we did on pocket A and stitch in the ditch, catching everything on the back, okay? Or hands. Actually, you know what? I might just hand stitch this one is what I'll do, and then I don't have to unpick it all. I like hand stitching. So I'll hand stitch mine down to the back. Then you're going to measure this piece from top edge of the binding, okay, to your bottom, and you're going to trim it at 6 inches tall. Okay. I have about an extra half an inch. That's normal. When you trim this piece, you've got one more piece of binding strip, and you're going to bind the bottom of the mesh bag also. Okay. So once it's trimmed up to that 6 inch, then you will take this binding and put raw edge to raw edge. Sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, do like we did before, flip it under, sew down the other side, just like you did when you applied this first binding. So you can even go back and look at that step again in the video if you need to do that side. Then this pocket will be ready to go on the outside of our bag when we assemble it. Okay, I'm just going to set this one aside. Does everyone feel that they'll be okay to continue that? Especially if you rewind video? Okay.
Yep, we're okay.
Okay. So now we go to pocket C and D. And I'm just going to demo this for you. I really do feel like you're going to be fine to do it based on the things we've already done in last month. Okay. So I've got pocket C and D. I have 4 pieces of the fold over elastic. And just a little talking about fold over elastic. One side is shiny and the other side is matte. And there is no wrong side or right side. You choose which side you like better, and that's your right side. Okay. I'm a kind of bling pop girl, so I always have shiny side on the outside. I like my shine. Okay. You will see fold over elastic has a line down the middle or like a seam. That's there on purpose. When you fold on that line, you now have centered and you have a piece of binding all ready for you to attach. Okay. If you like the matte side out, it's the exact same thing. You fold on that line and now you have the matte finish. Okay. The key to success with this is clipping and gently moving it along with your stiletto. I've tried doing it with basting tape. It was not a good idea. Things got sticky. The basting tape didn't allow stuff to stretch. Both of these are nylon. They want to stretch, and if you try to stop them, it's just not worth the battle. It makes things worse. So I'm going to, and again, don't worry if you have more mesh or less mesh when you start. By the time you sew it all on, it all comes together. So I'm just clipping it down. So we're sandwiching the mesh up against that center line, and we're just folding it towards us. So it's binding already made. That's what you call single fold binding, I believe. Only one layer of fabric on each side. Now, I clip all these to start, but just like when I was, I'm not going to clip any further than this because I already see, right? They're not the same, even though when I cut them, they were the same in theory. The mesh and this, all this is going to stretch and move and grow with you a bit as you sew it and don't worry about that. Always works out. Stretchy. Okay. And what you're gonna basically do is you're gonna do this to both of your pockets on both long sides, and that's all that we'll need to have done for next month. I'm just gonna put my 1/4 inch foot on, and you're sewing a scant 1/4 inch seam. And I know in Bernina land, we learned last week on Bernina brunch that our feet are already designed to be a scant 1/4 inch seam. But Annie sews on a Bernina, and from doing this, I know that we still have to be an extra scant, put it that way. So whatever presser foot you're using, go slightly less than what it tells you is your 1/4 inch when you sew this. Whatever brand model you have, that's my best recommendation. Okay, and again, start with a leader piece. And be gentle and coax this in. If you have, meant to say earlier, if you have a straight stitch plate with only the tiny hole in it, that's the one you'd want to have on. And if you feel it starting to suck in your mesh, which I already felt a little bit, this is where I take my stiletto. It's not stuck. I can move it up and down that needle. It's just like I need to loosen it up till it gets going. And I use my stiletto. See how I'm coaxing it along just a tiny bit. Once it all gets under my presser foot, it's smooth sailing. Now it's completely under the whole presser foot. I can whiz along now. I've done this part a lot of times. And again, making sure the mesh is staying inside. And we're sewing just close to the edge. And so I'm going to start, I'm just like guiding it back into place there a bit. I pull on it a little bit. I'm stretching the elastic a little bit. Because see, the thing is the elastic, it needs to stretch with it. See how I'm pulling it back a bit? Because the whole reason we're using elastic on this one is we want this to be like an expandable pocket so that it stretches with the shape of what we're trying to put in there. So if you have I had 3 or 4 pairs of rolled up socks in this when I tried it, worked really nicely to poke them in these mesh pockets because the shape of it stretches with the socks and fits in well then. And then I'll sew into an ender piece. Okay, and then I'll show you this. And then all of us, me included, we're going to follow the rest of the instructions to finish this piece. And I want to see my paper because I believe we have to trim it. Let's look. We are on mesh.
To make sure I'm clear, when you're putting that elastic on, you are sewing both sides together at the same time,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Would it help to have clips on that?
So I did clip it just for the first little while because once you get a section of it that's like staying in place, the rest of it, it helps it guide along. You can clip the whole thing. I've done both ways, Mavis. And either way, if I clip the whole thing, at some point I have to unclip stuff because of its stretching.
Oh, okay.
And then, does that make sense? Like it starts to stretch, so now it's not flat, so I have to move my clip to smooth it down. kind of like what I had to do earlier when we were sewing the fabric binding on, except it moves even more with this fold over elastic because it has stretch.
Okay.
But yeah, try clipping it all in place. This is really trial and error with this stuff, which is why I plan to have you do it on your own. Everybody's machine reacts differently to this mesh and how it's feeding. And, if you wanted to try pins, I've done it with pins too, or sometimes pins I found work nicely.
I
But
would
it will,
tend to, like, would it make matter if I use a very small zigzag stitch?
I don't think, hmm. You know what I
Because I
would
think it
do?
would stretch better.
Yeah, I would test that on a couple of scraps. If you have a little scrap of mesh and just take a couple of inches of your fold over tape, I would test that first. I would love to know how that works. Your idea makes sense.
And I just did another project with ByAnnie,
Mm-hmm.
and which has, where you really want to make sure it stretches. And I did it in two passes with zigzag.
Oh, and it was fine.
Well, yes, you don't see the other side anyway, so I did a first side, then pull, then bent my
So you sewed down one, so basically,
side and
I
then
understand you did
folded
this.
over. That's right.
So you just stitched it so you could see that and stitched it all down
Yeah,
and then folded it over and went again.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good technique to try. Then you're not worrying about it whether they're staying aligned when you
That's
sew
right.
two at the same time. They have to stay aligned.
That's right.
I'm gonna try that.
And like it was for a, she has a car seat, back
Yes,
car seat
backseat
thing for
babysitter.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted it to be really solid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Smart. That's a great tip. Thank you. I'm gonna try it to finish it. So I'm gonna ask everyone to prepare those two pieces for next month. So then you're not trimming anything. You're just keeping it the exact size it is, and you're gonna put a piece on the bottom, and then you're gonna do that again for the second piece. And those are your pockets C and D. We're gonna take a break until 1:30, okay? Because the next part, I just want everyone to feel like they had a chance to stretch or bathroom or whatever before we do the next part. It's not hard, it's just new. All right, I'm just gonna turn off my camera for a moment.
Haven't heard much yelling.
Okay. You're going to need to make sure you have a marking tool that you can see on your fabric. And that can be removed. So I'm grabbing my chalk. And you will need a ruler that is at least has 15 inches on it for measuring. Okay. Alrighty. This part is has a a one new step in it for us. But the nice thing is this is actually pretty easy, this part. It just looks like it isn't when you look at the picture. Okay. So we are now going to do what's called attaching the zippers to the flap. And so I have my flap piece here and I have it right side up. So that's my main fabric side. Now, here's something that is important. If you have directional fabric so that it matters which way things look when you open your bag, then you think of the top left as the top direction of the fabric. The head would be over here, if that makes any sense. If these were little characters or cars, you want the right side up over to the left. Is there anyone doing something crazy like that? No. Okay, good, good. Because you can do it, but it's a little tricky for your first one. Okay. So
I was going to do something Tula, but everything I picked up was directional.
yeah,
And I thought, not on this one.
no, smart choice, Mavis. That was why the one we picked for our kit here, I chose, it's a tiny bit directional in that, yeah, the stem of the flower, but there's so much movement in it, you can't tell much. I didn't worry about that. I decided I didn't care. So we are making this piece right here. And what we're going to be doing is sewing. This will be the part that's new for us, is rounding this edge of a zipper and enclosing it. Okay, that's basically the only thing that's new to us on making that. So that's not bad at all. Okay, so here we go. We have to mark some lines to know where to position our zipper, where to sew, and where not to sew. So if you are making the large size bag, get that nice and close here. This part is important. If you're making the large size bag, you're using these measurements and you are drawing 3 lines. They are going vertically and I'm measuring from my left side over. So it's just like if I was measuring to cut a piece of fabric 13¼ yard, 13¼ inches. I do the same thing, line up my numbers so I know I have 13¼ and I'll chalk a line. And I'm going to do that as I show you. What might help you on your pattern, what I have done to mine, is because it's easier for me to look at a picture than to read all of Annie's words, bless her heart. But sometimes I feel there's too many words and I'd like more pictures. The very first line, the shortest one, or shortest from the left, that's my 13¼ inch line. That's going to be where I stop sewing. So I actually wrote stop on that line, or you could write sew line, whatever. Because when we go to our sewing machine, We're going to be sewing on the zipper starting over here. We're going to start sewing there. And we're going to keep sewing until we get to where we've drawn that 13 1/4 inch line, and then we're going to like backstitch. Okay. So on my picture, I wrote stop. So we're going to stop sewing. That middle line, I wrote down here, fold back. That's where I'll be taking a little part of my zipper and I'll be folding it back to create the curve. That's the part that's new today. Okay. And then the outer line, which is 14 1/4 inches, I put that zipper edge. That's where I'm going to line up the end of my zipper is going to go against that last furthest away line from the left. So with that, those of you who are ready, have your quilted piece cut. Let's mark those lines. Okay. Because I use chalk, here's a little tip that I figured out a long time ago. And I do this actually when I'm cutting fabric a lot too. Start at the furthest away one and do it first. If you're like me, I'm right-handed. The way I always work is, right, I line up my measurement here and then I cut. I cut off that other end, or in this case, I draw the line. If you go to the furthest one away, then rather than picking up your ruler to reposition it, you slide the ruler back. Then you do the shorter one. Then you slide again and do the next shorter one. Then you're not smudging your chalk and you're not lifting and repositioning your ruler, which opens up the opportunity to make a mistake. So I'm going to start by drawing my 14 1/4 inch line. 14, I should have a wider ruler here. I do have one, but okay. So over here, I'm aligned at 14 1/4 inch on my far left. And then I'm going to chalk this. Now, in all fairness, you don't need to draw the line all the way across because you just need to know it where the zippers are going. But I'm using chalk, it comes off, so I'm going to do what Annie did and draw the whole line. Okay, so that was my 14 1/4. See that line there? Now this is where I'm going to check, and it says my middle line is 13 3/4, so I'm just sliding that ruler to the left. And I'm at 13 3. I'm checking that I'm nicely aligned here because I want my zippers to be straight on my bag. Just gently eyeball that through. Okay, there's my middle line, and then my inner line where I'm going to stop sewing at is 13 1/4. Okay, and 13 1/4 up there, and I'm squared at the bottom. Okay, and there's my 3 lines drawn. Give everyone a moment to do that who's stitching along with me. So then next, I'm going to take one of my zippers. Little glare there. Okay. So, just so you can see how this is going to come together. For the moment, I'm just sitting my zippers right side up because what's important is I want to look and see. I make sure the nose is pointing to the right. Okay. And I'm going to move those zipper pulls closer to the right end. But I don't want to go past that inside line because that's where I'm going to stop sewing. Right? And the zipper pull always needs to be in the part that gets sewed, not the outside of the sewing. Okay. So I'm doing this to make sure that looks right. And I can show you because I have the bag samples. You're going to get the idea of what I'm doing. Okay. I'm double checking to see, is it going to look like this when I'm done? There's my zipper pull with the nose pointing to the right. Okay, so I'm basically laying it out the way it's going to look. This is the line I stopped sewing at. And after we're all done, we round our corners, we're going to have this flap. So this is what we're building. Okay. So now that I know I have these aligned correctly, this is just like sewing two pieces of fabric together again. I'm going to turn it over because we want right sides together. I'm going to remove this one for now because we're only going to sew on one zipper at a time. Okay. So I'm going to put it right sides together, but so you know how I've been telling you all along, you have to extend that fabric tape a little bit past the quilted edge? Well, we're not going to this time. Just to confuse you again. You can use your tape or your Wonder Clips, put it right down, raw edge. Don't go all the way across your fabric. You're only sewing to that stop line. And I don't even want to go all the way to that chalked stop line. I'm going to stop my tape a little bit before it because I don't want to like get too close to where I have to after do some manipulations to my zipper. So, or you can Wonder Clip it. This time we're going to use what we know to be true as quilters, and we're going to line up edge to each edge, exactly flush. So I'm making the zipper and the quilted soft and stable. Raw edges perfectly aligned this time. Okay. And you're either clipping or you're sticking it to your tape. And you're going to see how I'm going to be able to stop sewing before I get to that line. I didn't stick it all the way to make it easier to stop. Okay. Then now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine. And as always, I'm going to stitch a generous 1/4 inch seam allowance.
You know, it might help if you marked the zipper at the stop line.
Absolutely. Good idea. Let's do that right now. There we go. Good idea. Okay. And so this is what your setup should look like if you're comparing it to your paper. This is where we're at. Okay. And so then when we turn to page 6, this is where it tells us that we're sewing a scant 1/4 inch. I was wrong. Scant 1/4 inch from the zipper tape. And we're going to stop at the sewing line. And for the large size, it's 13 1/4 is what I circled. Okay, so here we go. Oh, I'm going to put my zipper foot back on. It's funny, my zipper foot scared me for so many years of my sewing life. And then, I don't know, one day it just seemed to click for me. Now I love using it. I just can't get it on because I'm trying to move around my camera. There we go. We can see. So if you feel comfortable, you can start doing this. You don't have to wait to watch me. Okay, again, it's going to be a little bit taller at the back, or this is a little thick, so I'm just putting a little couple of layers of a leader in place. And I'll move my presser foot over to get my 1/4 inch. There I am.
Scant quarter.
Excuse me, Michelle.
Yes.
I think you lined up at the wrong end, according to the picture.
Okay.
You should have lined up at the chalk line and
Oh my gosh,
have an
yes, you're right.
overhang.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for catching that, Connie.
Another question, Michelle, is our bottom thread going to show?
Yes.
The bottom thread's going to show? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Connie. See, this is like the only bag she uses this technique on. And I forget. Okay. There we go. Ain't even drawn that picture. I didn't look at it. Where I had said zipper edge. Connie paid attention. Thank you, Connie. Okay. So I'm lined up right here. And I'm going to stop sewing at that first line. And so, like Mavis suggested, I'm going to mark on my tape. Okay. So now I have an overhang at this end, which we always want to have some overhang at. So now everything is exactly the way it should be. Phew. I'm glad you caught that. I would have had to rip things out and sew to anyone who listened to me. Okay. Here we go. So I'm just going to start sewing right into that zipper tape. No, it doesn't want me to. My machine needs a cleaning. That's it. I'm calling my technician. He's not home or I'd call right now. Tony! I think when I broke all those needles, I had also tangled a thread up in the feed dogs and I thought I got it out fine, but it's not always feeding properly, so I'm gonna have to have him look at it. Then I'll just move the zipper out of the way. And I'm stopping at that, not that line, this one here. Okay. That chalk line, the first chalk line we get to. Okay. So actually, neat thing on my presser foot here, I just noticed when my needles are in center, my presser foot is right on the edge of the line. Cool. Okay. And I like to do a little back stitch here. Just a couple stitches. 2 is good. We'll cut the thread. Okay. So everybody, I'm going to give everybody who's sewing along with me a moment to do that step. Take a couple minutes there. We're going to go to 2:15. Just so you know, that's going to be enough time for us to finish this section.
Okay, Michelle,
Yes. Yep.
you're saying to sew to the 13 and a quarter, not the 14 and a quarter?
Correct. The 14 and a quarter is just where the zipper tape stops.
Okay.
But you're going to stop stitching at
sewing.
the 13 and a quarter because we're going to do this thing where we're going to peel it back and do
Okay.
a little
Thank
fancy
you.
trick to close the end.
Gotcha.
It's a common zipper technique in bag making. If you use other brands of patterns, you'll see it. So it's good to learn from that perspective, but it's the only one I've encountered so far in ByAnnie's patterns. And if you're a Speedy Gonzalez and you're sitting there bored, I don't want you to start fooling around in class because you're bored. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, right? So it'd be lined up and then we'll turn it over align our raw edges. Zipper tape stops at the 14 1/4 inch line. And you do the exact same thing. Stitch a scant 1/4 inch. Now, if you like sewing from the right, then what you'll do is you just put your needle where the stop sewing line is. You just start there. No. So while everyone's stitching that piece down, I'm just going to start attaching this section on. So we're just going to do the exact same step again to the other side when you're ready. Ignore the fact that Annie is doing it differently on her strip. You guys know I like to do the steps that are the same all at one time and then go do the other steps. So she says, do all this and then repeat for the other side. Instead, I'm just saying, let's do each step at the same time on each side. So now I'm going to attach my other side of my flap. So again, making sure that the nose of my zipper is pointing to the right. Flip it over so right sides of zipper are against right side of fabric. But this time I'm aligning the edge of the zipper tape with the exact edge of the quilted piece. And at the far right, I'm aligning the zipper edge with my 14 1/4 inch line, or whatever line is furthest to the right for the size of bag you are making. And then stick it or wonder clip it in place.
14 1/4.
And then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew this one down. But because it's hard to train my mind to think differently, I like sewing from the top right. I'm just going to see where that line is, the stop sewing line. And I just marked it on my zipper. That's where I'm going to put my needle in. And I'm going to start sewing from that line this time. In fact, it's easier because you'll be starting all the way in the nice, soft, squishy fabric that the sewing machine likes. So this side is easier to do. And I also means I don't have to change because I'm using a zipper foot. I don't have to change and sew from the other side of it. So I don't have to change my needle position or anything. If some of you are there saying, what in the world is she talking about? Because you're using a 1/4 inch foot, just ignore me. Okay, I'm going to draw that line out further because I really want to be able to see that I'm putting my needle down on that line. Because this part matters to be accurate if you want both of your zippers to close and look really professionally just right and identical on both sides. I just took 3 stitches forward. It's really important if I'm going to reverse that I don't take more than 3 back because I have to stay inside that line. So I'm just going to take like 2 stitches back out of safety. 1, 2. Okay. And then I'll proceed and sew all the way to the end. When you get here where this pull is, Sometimes it's hard to get your fabric of your zipper tape aligned exactly to your quilted part, and you see that. When that happens, what I often do is after I pull the zipper foot out of the way, if I need to, I just lift this and reposition my tape a wee bit, or if you're using Wonder Clips, then there, that's good. Okay. So now we look like this step. So now we need to go and do the step that's going to create this part. We need to end up with two little kind of folded over tabs on the edges of our zipper. This is a technique used so that you don't have to make what's called a zipper tab, where you take a piece of fabric and sew it over the end of the raw edge of the zipper to enclose it, because this end of the zipper is going to be exposed. So if we look at the bag again, this is where we're at. So see this seam here where we said stop sewing? Like that's the line you drew right there. That's the stop sewing line. But now what we're doing is we're going to learn how to create this little pleat and round this edge so that it's just going to be then enclosed in my flap. Okay. Trust the process on this one. This flap was mind-boggling to me at the beginning, and then when I played with it a couple of times, it all made sense. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. So to start with, we need to be able to separate the zipper. So now you're going to have to remove that stitch in between your teeth because we want to pull these two ends open. Sometimes I just do it with my stiletto. I'll just no, let's take my ripper. Sometimes I can be lazy and not have to reach for another tool. No, this sounds terrible. It's awkward catching the stitch. There, I got it. Make sure it's okay. So you want to break that stitch so you can open your zipper on both sides. There we go. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is you may have to move your zipper pull out of the way. You can go back to like the middle section is pretty good, halfway back, so that we can pull these teeth apart. So now your zipper looks like this on both of them. Okay. We don't need these two pieces right now. So I'm just going to flip them back out of the way. In fact, I could pull them all the way out of the way, but I'm not going to do that yet because I don't need to. But to help you avoid getting confused, just clip it back out of the way. There we go. Because the part we want to work right with right now is the part that's already sewed down to our fabric. Okay. So this is kind of like an awkward little trick. I found having a stiletto really helps. But basically what we want to do is, and I hope I can get this to be clear here. Let's get closer. Let me try turning off the light. Sometimes you can't have enough light and sometimes you have too much. There we go. That's better. I stood up over it to make some shade here. Okay. So see that line here? That's the line where we want to bend the zipper. And we're kind of doing like a little pinch at a 90-degree angle. So I'm taking this end. This is why I like using a stiletto. I'm like picking it up and I'm folding it back on itself like so. So it makes a little pucker in here, a little pleat. Okay. And I want to keep bringing it until the edge of my zipper teeth touches that line. And when I do that, what naturally happens is, you see, my zipper goes past the fabric, and that's correct. You're going to have zipper fabric overhanging your edge, and that is correct. In fact, you'll know you did it correctly if you get overhang. If you don't get any overhang, you probably didn't go back far enough and your teeth are probably extending past the line. Okay? It's very precise measurement. Then when I get that, so if you don't have a stiletto, just, wiggle and play with it there. But you want that 90-degree. Yes, there's a curve there, but it's still like a 90-degree in that my teeth here, they're lined with that. And then clip it in place. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm just going to do a 1/8 seam allowance and I'm going to sew across here to hold that pleat down. So I'll show you this one and then I'll show it again on the other side. And then those of you who are ready, you give it a try. Okay. And I'm going to sew this. So I will keep this on. I'm going to sew it from the top because it's easier if you're trying to fold it back towards you, then you want to sew over that, right? If you did it the opposite way, it would try to flip over on itself. So you're going to sew it from that end. You're going to have to take out your Wonder Clip to do this. I've tried pinning it. That's awkward too. I just find using an awl or a stiletto to hold it down is the easiest way to do this. We're just trying to tack it. So stitch, just don't go further deep than your 1/4 inch seam allowance, okay? You just want to make it get tacked down in there. And then I just given another little back stitch a wee bit. Okay, couple stitches. And so that's what I have created. And it looks like that. it's going past it. And I'm going to end up trimming that extra bit away. Okay. So I'll show you how I do it on the other side. I'm going to trim that one first. You know what? I'm not happy with that. I'm going to do that one again after. I'm going to show it to you again on the other side though. This is a tricky little technique. Those of you who've done dressmaking and things, you've probably already done this before. But for me, this is new. Okay. So I'm going to again pull it. You know what? I find it. There we go. I'm going to pull it towards because I'm doing I'm trying to create a corner for my teeth. And so this time I'm pulling it towards me. And then I'm watching, do these teeth line up with that line? And once they do, then that's where I clip it. Okay. And then I'll take it to my sewing machine. I'm going to do it the opposite way. This time, I know usually I'd say don't go against it, but I need to change my foot if I'm going to do that. Okay. And then I'm just going to stitch in here to tack that down and hold it in place. Go close to my teeth, then back, the back stitch. Okay. That one turned out very nice. Okay. You'll know it's right because then if I go to peel it back like that, it's going to turn out. Yep. Once we turn that inside out, it'll look good. So it's fiddly. You may have to try a couple times to get one you like. Don't beat yourself up. It's a fiddly little technique. Okay. Any questions about that part?
I hope they're straight. I feel like they're not.
Yeah, I'm going to rip those stitches out and do that one again. Right now. Just because I'm going to show you. Yeah, I didn't even catch the stitches. That was the problem. Didn't catch the fabric. I'm going to show you how to finish the flap because the rest of it's not hard at all. And then we'll call it a day. So you do have a fair bit of homework this month, but the good news is you won't have that much after month 2. Okay. Now, I've been told some people like to pucker it the other way, so the pleats on the outside instead of the inside. You can just play with personal choice if you want to experiment. It's easy to rip the stitch out and change how you do it. Okay. There we go. That's better. So once I've done that, I have completed to this step. Okay. That is, then we're ready to prepare our facing flap. So I'm just gonna unzip this so that it looks like what you're seeing in the picture. Okay. So now mine looks like that step right there. Okay. So for the next part, I then have to take the piece that's called the flat facing. And so this is the part that I've wondered why Annie did it this way. We're going to be taking essentially another piece of fabric and we're going to be sewing it so that it's going to end up covering that lining. I suspect the reason she did it this way is because she wants you to be able to just quilt that one great big piece and then cut everything out. It would be more complicated to say and do all that, but for this section, you don't need to. So I suspect that's why she did it that way. But I'm pointing this out to you so that in future, I was about to say, you could choose to modify that. Okay. I don't care. It's not a big deal. It's a little fabric, but all right. So we're going to take our flap facing and we're going to need our chalk to do some marking and our ruler because now what we want to do is we want to put our hook and loop or what the world mostly knows as Velcro. So we're going to pull it apart, but Velcro is a brand name, just like Kleenex is a tissue brand name. Okay. And the first part that we are going to use is the scratchy side, which is the hook. Okay. The soft fuzzy side is the loop. So you can sit the loop aside and just take the hook. Okay. And then you're going to grab your ruler. Right here. So we just want to draw the lines to position our hook over to the right end. And so to do so, you can look at the diagram, figure 21 right here, and step B on page 6. Okay, so we have our flapping right side up. Okay, it's wider than it is tall, so we've already done that. And we're marking a vertical line from top to bottom, a ½ inch in from the right edge. So that means we're going to go in a ½ inch this way and do a little, that's what I said, the vertical? Yeah, ½ inch this way and draw a vertical line up and down. We're going to do that first, okay? And then we're going to position them in ½ an inch. So I'll just show you here. So I'm going to start by, okay, so I'm going to do my ½ inch one first. Of course, now I have the biggest ruler on earth to do this for a small thing. So this is my ½ inch line I'm doing in from the right edge. Oops, move on me. Okay, so I do that line first. And then I'm going to do a horizontal line. If I'm doing the large bag, I'm going 1 inch from the top and 1 inch from the bottom. If you're doing a different size bag, carefully look right here to see which line you're using. Okay, I'm going 1 inch. Okay, so it's basically 1 inch in and 1 inch down. Yeah.
Okay, let me get confused here. So
Yeah.
okay, so it's 1.25 inches horizontally. And then in my case, I'm doing medium, so 3/4 from the top in and from the bottom up, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Essentially, what it's helping you do is center it. because then we're going to put it right in between those lines. I'm just going to try something here out of curiosity. There's the middle of my fabric. And there's the middle. I found the center of my fabric and the center of my Velcro. Ah, so if you don't want to mark those other lines, what matters is you need that vertical line a half inch in from the right. And then as long as you find the center of your fabric and the center of your hook, all you're doing is just putting it right up against that edge of that chalk line, aligned in center. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's so many different ways you could explain something, right? And why I've always said I don't ever want to write a pattern such as this. Okay, so then now we need to stitch that down on all four sides. And again, I'm stitching this to the right side of the fabric. Okay, so to hold that down, you could take like a little bit of a glue stick, or all I'm gonna do is, because I have my basting tape here, is I don't need much. Just a little bit of something to anchor it in place. That would approximately be in the middle. That's right. I don't want to sew through it, right? And I'm just going to hold it down like that. Okay, and then I'll take that over. Now, if you want, preferably you would switch to white thread, right? If you're sewing down white Velcro, you don't want to see it. So I'm going to just quickly do that. Because this will be visible when you open your bag, right? Because that piece is going to end up right there, and you're going to see the thread color. And then you're just using a little like a scant 1/8 seam allowance. You don't want to sew into the hook part. You just want to stay in that little bit of stiff fabric around the edge of it. That's where you want to sew. And
So we're sewing the hook part against the fabric.
you got it. Okay. And if you have a piping foot, for me, I like to use my number 38 foot for this on my Bernina. So I'm just going to put that on. The reason I like it is because this is also a foot made for sewing on things like Velcro, because it's higher on one side and flatter on the other. So you put you sew it so that you get everything at an equal height. So when I'm sewing this, I'm starting, the way I'm using this foot is that I'm actually starting sewing on the left because this side of my presser foot is not as tall as this side, and but the hook is taller than that part, so that's how I'm balancing it out. So it just helps me to get a smoother stitch. And if you don't want it to look messy, your threads, you could even pull up your bobbin thread here so that you could trim them both nicely at the top in case you're worrying about getting a little bit of thread nesting. Okay. And then just pivot. What's going on? Oh, Michelle, you got to thread the needle. That's why the stitch wasn't working. Funny how they don't sew when they don't have thread. Okay. And so now my piece looks like that. Okay. And that's as far as we're going to go for today. And then we're going to just finish sewing this on to this part when we come back next time. Okay? It's enough for, I'd hope to go the last step, but you know what? I think we've had enough for today. It's a lot of new stuff. So that will still give us enough time, the next class, for what I have planned. So I'm just going to switch cameras. Okay. So basically, before the next class, I hate it when you get an angle, the hair looks bad. I had a shower, but I was like, I don't want to blow dry today. I want a day off from that. So essentially, what you're going to have finished for the next class, I'm just going to grab my pieces here. You're going to have 2 mesh pockets with fold over elastic on each of the long sides. So basically, only the short sides won't have elastic on them. Okay. So that'll be your 2 mesh pockets ready to go. And we'll be putting them on the inside of the bag. Something that you can think about, because we'll do this next class, is Annie shows it in the pattern, so take time and look ahead again. If you wish, you can have dividers inside your pocket so we can stitch it down. I left mine as one big floppy pocket because my rationale is I just want to be able to tuck 2 or 3 pairs of socks in there, and it worked well that way. I kind of auditioned it by pinning it down before I made my decision, and I found that had I sewn it all the way, I could only get like 1 pair of socks in each because this is all stitched down. So you can decide if you want a divided pocket or not. You could divide it in 3s. Whatever you think you might use this bag for, it's a chance to customize it. If you have no idea what you're going to use it for, my suggestion is, why don't you stitch one of them in half and leave the other side completely open so that you can have more flexibility to fill it with things. Okay, so you're going to finish those two pockets. You're going to finish this outer mesh pocket. So we have to make sure we then trim this to the correct height and then put another piece of fabric binding on the bottom. Then we'll have that piece ready. It actually, see why we're binding it? Can you see that? There's the binding. It's actually just getting completely sewed on to the outside main fabric. It's going to be so easy to attach it. That's what, because we put binding on each end. So you're going to complete that. You're going to make your grab tag. You're going to make your handle. Okay? That's where the other piece of your hook and loop is going. The loop will be going on here. These are your end pieces. Where'd they go? I showed them to you earlier. Where are they? These ones. Okay? They go like that. Those are those end pieces. In next class, we'll position the handle on it and the loop. Okay? And once we do that, we're going to just finish this because we want to finish our grab tab to be able to finish our flat. So essentially, that piece of facing we just did, this is it. It ends up against, once I pull these zippers back, this is what I'm making. That's the flat. It's not so obvious right now because my zippers aren't pulled back. That's the outside of it. We're going to enclose all the raw stuff with that other flap side, and that's where you get your Velcro added on. So it may seem like, oh my gosh, what have we done today and where are we going? But it's all going to come together really nicely. Just trust, and we'll finish up those bits and bobs, and we'll be putting this baby all together next month. Ugh. And we will then at the end of next month do a bit of homework for flipping out, and we'll be able to make the flipping out in one class on the third session.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. Flipping out isn't as much work as you might think when you look at the weird shape. Yeah. So if you get stuck on anything, you know, to just pick up the phone, call the store, send an email, and I'll make time to try to answer your questions for you and help you out. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording there.